is teaching me something really amazing.
Mm,
Um, More recently, I think over the last year, I would say the biggest thing is his sovereignty. Um, we've been going through a study through the book of John, and it is amazing how just God's sovereignty is displayed in
mm,
everything in that. And it's amazing to see from the Samaritan woman to the discussions with Nicodemus, even to his crucifixion, the way that people are able to make their own decisions and, either turn him in or do one thing or another. Yet it's all under the sovereignty of God, and it's just so amazing. And how important that understanding is as you go through trials, that if you focus on God's sovereignty and the fact that He works all things for good for you, then you are able to go through the trials and respond to them in the way that He calls us to.
mm.
Because if we're in a trial, that means He wanted us in a trial. And so, what does He want us to learn from this? And how does He want us to grow? And so, it's been an amazing, amazing experience so far. And like I said, my head is still spinning. So,
And
that's the, that's the kind of medium version of the testimony.
medium. Okay. Yeah, you definitely have to hear the extended version sometime. Um, um, yeah, the so so in your experience of when you first heard about Yeshua, Jesus, and all that, going around, especially like, um, were you ever pressured into converting to Christianity, or were you ever, like, do you ever feel like you lost your Jewishness when you came to faith, or did you know that hey, this is I'm still Jewish. I didn't lose anything. Um, I'm I believe in the Messiah. I'm still Jewish. Um, and I'm now part of that remnant that God promises to have in the eternal kingdom.
Yeah, that's a great question. I was never pressured into it. And it's interesting to see how, as I look kind of backward towards life, it feels like more and more, I feel like the testimony of Christians that I interacted with has been, sooner than I expected. For the most part, it's been the friends that I've been hanging out with. But I've had situations, for instance, where somebody who was a Christian, I remember buying a freezer, like a chest freezer from Lowe's or Home Depot, and had like a Camry car or something. I couldn't fit it into the trunk. And so the guy walks up to at the time, my girlfriend and I, and asked us if we needed help, and said yeah. And so he basically had a pickup truck, and we had loaded onto his pickup truck, and he delivered it to an apartment.
Well,
And you know, that asked for nothing in return, no money, no nothing. Gave us like a little pocket New Testament thing, which I don't even have, or something like that. Invite us to church, but nothing else in that. And just as I think about my time here in South Carolina, I think more and more situations where I've had that, and how even though I didn't realize it, those were seeds that they were doing in their testimony of like showing that they're going above and beyond, asking nothing in return. And then even as they're talking about Yeshua, which I now greatly appreciate, and how bold that they were, even if I had like a bit of a negative reaction, they didn't seem phased by it.
mm,
Um, so I was absolutely not pressured into it. And so, we've had discussions and stuff like that, but that's just a matter of like sharing the faith and me trying to argue about things. So, um, and as far as like losing my Jewishness, that wasn't really ever an issue, I feel like, because I feel like, um, even before I took that step, I kind of understood that there is this like, well, he is a Jewish Messiah, so it's not necessarily a thing that, as I was contemplating whether or not to really accept him, there was this feeling of like it kind of maybe felt like idolatry, maybe.
mm,
And one of the things that I had to struggle with is like, Lord, show me that this is not idolatry, right? So show me that this is the what should be done.
mm,
Um, and the first Bible that I got is the CJB, the Complete Jewish Bible. So I think that helped in kind of giving a lot of context to books of the New Testament and the New Testament as a whole. I got to talk to Sam on the phone pretty early on, and in the first few weeks that I was in the faith, and he, of course, explained everything. Every phone call with him was like an hour and a half, and I was just trying to keep up, writing stuff down, and I couldn't keep up with it. Just so much value, but um, the overall message was pretty clear: is that you don't stop being Jewish when you come to faith. Um, it's just a matter of he is the fulfillment of the Tanakh, so it really doesn't make sense not to believe in him. Um, so as the more I saw him too in the Tanakh, the stronger I became in that this is what Judaism was meant to be like, not the Judaism that is based on the oral law, that is not divinely inspired, but rather based on the New Covenant, which is inspired. Um, so yeah, I didn't have that. I know that as I share with my family what happened, my two brothers were kind of confused, I think, but they didn't really care for the most part. For them, atheist or Jewish or Messianic Jewish, they didn't really understand the differences. My dad took it the hardest, and I didn't do a great job of really like kind of softening the blow. I just, you know, sent a message to the family group chat one Thursday. I said, "Hey, I'm getting baptized on Sunday." So he, but he had a hard time with it. He couldn't sleep for the night, and I spoke to him later, and he mentioned, of course, one of the first few things is if you ever heard Jewish testimonies, is he's like, "Let me get you talking to a rabbi." And I said, "Dad, you don't know any rabbis." Um, because we grew up secular, I didn't even know what he believed in. He has mentioned, because I asked him, that he does believe in God in some sort of way, but not even necessarily in the way that the Tanakh describes him. But he had a hard time with it. He asked, why don't you wait like 12 to 18 months? And, why are you doing this rash decision? Let me talk to a rabbi. And so I started talking to him a little bit about what the actual rabbis believe in, and the weird stuff that they do, because it, quite frankly, it seems more out there than what we as Messianic believers believe in. So I tried to kind of mention it to him, and I was like, Dad, I think you should talk to a rabbi and kind of find out what they believe in before you start, accusing this of being crazy, crazy nonsense. But there's especially living in Israel, there's a lot of like dogma against it. It's one of honestly the worst things that can happen to you is like, one of your kids, turns, Christian. Um, and he would, my grandfather on his side had supposedly been beaten up by people who were Christians who were probably not in Christ at all. But basically, it would ask him, whether or not the Messiah has come or is he waiting for him. I guess it was just some anti-Semitic way to beat up Jews in Syria. It was. So he was telling me about that, and I was like, "That nobody forced me. Nobody put a gun to my head. Like, I didn't get beat up in this. So this isn't the same thing at all." Um, but I think he might still have a hard time with it. But I think he's doing much better. I think one of the big things is the next time I was hosting Shabbat dinner at my home, I'd ask him for some recipes and for like a spread on what to do, and I think it was really relieving for him because he sent a bunch of stuff, but I think he was excited I was holding on to the Jewish identity because I think he was worried about me that I would abandon it and I'm not Jewish anymore and all that, which is obviously a wrong understanding of how what coming to faith does for you. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the entire question.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that answering